One way to understand race is to examine it at its most extreme. The violence of racism is all too familiar to the Damer family in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Vernon Damer was a successful black man in the segregated South. He farmed cotton and ran a small general store next to his house. In the 1960s, Damer became active in the civil rights movement.
You know, I can remember as a small kid standing out there outside of the store after one of the attacks with the Klan had driven by the night before and shot the windows out of the store, and this would happen on a fairly frequent basis. I believe the sheriff came out, said something to the effect of, well, if you wasn't in the civil rights struggle, you wouldn't be having these problems. And he got in his car and left.
When Vernon Damer volunteered his store as a place blacks could register to vote, the Ku Klux Klan decided he had gone too far.
He knew when he was trying to get black people to go down and register to vote that it was a dangerous thing. I knew it was dangerous because we slept in shifts. We knew somebody needed to be awake at all time in the house, especially after dark. Yes, we knew it was dangerous.
Confronting the reality of race took great courage in the mid-60s. But in January of 1966, the Damers' worst fear came true.
And I yelled to Vernon to get up. I believe they got us this time. The car horn was blowing. I could see the eaves of the house burning. Shots was coming in. And he was yelling to me to get the children out while I tried to hold them off.
I remember her waking me up. I didn't know what was going on. Once she did get me up, I knew that the house was on fire. I didn't know why the house was on fire. I was a 10-year-old little happy little girl. I played with dolls and had tea parties that my daddy came to.
She was on the bottom deck and her coat was hanging up on the top. I reached to get the coat put on her because it was cold that morning. And the fire was coming so fast I couldn't even get the coat off on the post.
They torched the house and the grocery store with gasoline bombs simultaneously. And they came fully armed with high-powered guns and started shooting into the house. And the reason why they were shooting was to keep the family trapped in the house because they also set the doors afire so the family could not escape. And the intent was to burn the entire family up.
But what the Klansmen didn't count on was that Vernon Damer was prepared to defend his family at any cost. He shot back at the attackers, buying time for an escape.
She was screaming to the top of her voice, "Look, we're going to get burned up in this house. We're not going to get out." I hit the window so hard with my shoulder that I knocked the bottom sash of the window out, and I fell out with the bottom sash. And the next thing, Vernon was handing Betty out to the window to me. She was crying. You could see she had been burned on her arms and her forehead up there.
Miraculously, the family managed to flee the burning house, but both Betty and her father were injured. Once they reached the hospital, Ellie Damer believed the worst was over.
They put them in a hospital room together, both of them in the same room. And they brought a wheelchair in there. And the black nurse gave me a blanket so I could put around my feet and around me to get warm, because we left out with nothing but it's just what we were sleeping in. We didn't have time to get shoes, coat, or anything. And next that evening, Vernon died. I thought he was getting better, but I guess you see what you want to.
It's a vivid illustration of the damage caused by racism. But the story doesn't end in 1966. A Klan leader was arrested for ordering the arson and murder, but one after another, 4 all-white juries deadlocked. Justice was denied for 32 years. At last, in 1998, Sam Bowers was found guilty of first-degree murder by a jury of whites, blacks, and Asians.
What happened to our family is an example of how race can be used in the worst way. First of all, my father is murdered. Then secondly, when we go into the judicial system, it is slanted because of race to favor someone else initially. There is no level playing field. So race has a lot of connotations to it. Some are very good, some are very bad.
One group of people attacks another. A man is killed, and a murderer goes free for 3 decades, all because of race. What makes people behave this way?
Unfortunately, we use the differences because we don't know any better, really. We use the differences between ourselves as in hopes that by doing so, our particular and individual lives will be better. And in that case, then, race is a big bashing 2x4, and so we whip each other with race, not knowing that as we whip each other, we're beating our own selves to death with race.